So, as awesome as the Mark II is, and obviously it's the result of much conversation between Canon USA and Canon Inc. And literally, I can go down the feature check list on the Mark II, and I can go back to my notes from 2 Septembers ago when we sat down with the product group for the first time, and it's almost an item for item. So it's amazing to see how they responded to us. What is probably more amazing is that while they're responding to us, the little elves are building something that we never brought up, never asked for, never thought of. All of a sudden, next to this, we get this teeny little sub-miniature 4/5 scale Hasselblad type camera with this beautiful ergonomic grip and a built-in 10 power lens, and we're thinking, my gosh, what is this, you know? If you remember years and years ago, probably, gosh, it's been like maybe 7 years already, there was a company that introduced the concept of a 3K camera for 3K. And I was involved in that project, and it was an extraordinarily challenging thing. It took literally 7 years of technology and advance in lens design and recording technology. These CFast cards that have this ultra-fast 350 to 500 megabit recording rate. It took all this technology to basically make that dream come true. In effect, the XC10 is this do-everything, super small, compact, 4K for 2K, 4K camera with the ability to shoot 12 megapixel stills, 12 stops of dynamic range in this little camera for effectively $2,000. We include a 64 gig CFast card and a reader, which bumps the price to $24.95. But effectively, you're getting this camera for a couple $1,000s. The lens is purpose-built specifically to cover a 1-inch sensor, a unique sensor size in our video world, designed for 4K. It's a 4K UHD recording technology. It records at 305 megabits per second, which is just incomprehensible in this little camera. The challenges of building that camera 7 years ago was that heat management was the problem. You couldn't make something that small that would have the ability to not overheat. So having all of this technology in this super small, compact little camera, my reaction to it, my gut reaction, is that this is a perfect example of Canon building a product not unlike the XL1, not unlike the 5D2, that they really don't know what the market is. They're going to let the market determine what it is. I'm convinced that as soon as this camera comes out and people look at it, it's going to be well, I just want one. And then they're going to figure out what to do with it. Yeah. At 2.5 pounds, it can be a GoPro killer. It can be the camera that can be used at 422 8-bit. The image quality off the camera is gorgeous. It's going to be used in so many different ways that it's probably easier to think of who couldn't use it than who can. As pro reps, we sit in the room and are introduced to this camera, and we all want one. You just want it because it's so rad. It's just this small, perfect little awesome camera that if I want to, I can switch into a 12 megapixel still camera. It's got a mechanical shutter in it. Right. It's just, it's crazy. And they literally, the engineers just like, oh, here, we made one of these, you know, are you kidding me? It's just, it was awesome. I think that this industry is extraordinarily challenging. I've been involved in it my whole life from a variety of different perspectives and positions, and it could be said that our industry is not very healthy right now. As far as the manufacturers are concerned, it's kind of like this headlong race to the bottom for margin and profit. Cameras are getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, and at some point it's like, well, you know, it's not a volume product. Right. You're not making hundreds of thousands of cinema cameras a year. It's a low volume market, so the only thing that's left is margin, and if there's no margin, then where do you go? Right. So it's a challenging market, and it's one that I think, like all challenging markets, will always have the leaders rise to the top. I know that the philosophy of the company is, regardless of where the industry goes, we always want to have #1 market share. That will always be Canon's directive, is to lead. They have committed to it. They have committed to us that this is not a passing fad. This is not a momentary, well, let's do this until we figure out what we're really going to do. This is something that they've put a lot of energy and a lot of focus on. And I think ultimately, when the smoke clears, there's going to be a few standing, and Canon will be one of them. It's the fact that they are a lens manufacturer, a glass manufacturer, that makes Canon unique. Regardless of where the camera market goes, you can't miniaturize the physics of a glass lens. And the mechanics and the physics that goes into it is always going to be something that will be our bailiwick. It's going to be what we do. And I think regardless of where imaging goes, if you're building your own sensors, making your own glass, and you're building your own processors, then you can do whatever you want. And I think that's what Canon wants to do.